Yo, what is going on, you guys? Or should I say, welcome your beautiful faces. Welcome back to a brand new video. It is Carter from CBH. I'm sorry for any sound in the background in this video. But today, I know a lot of people have been wanting to hear my thoughts on this. I'm going to be giving y'all my thoughts on what is going on in college sports right now. This is likely going to be a 15 to 20-minute video, so please sit down, get your popcorn, and maybe a root beer, and sit on down. Alright? This video is not going to be edited. I'm just going to list my raw thoughts on what the heck is going on right now in college sports. As a lifelong Arkansas fan, while I don't want to necessarily get into too much of what is going on in other conferences, what Texas and Oklahoma have done, blindsiding their own league, the Big 12, by talking with the SEC for over 6 months. Without Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby knowing, I will be talking about the ripple effects from Texas and Oklahoma's move. And I'm not saying potential move, because it is basically a sharpening of the pencil away from Texas and Oklahoma in the league. So let's start out from the beginning. On Wednesday, when Texas A&M coach Jimbo Fisher was about to walk up and address the media at 2021 SEC Media Days, right before he was. The Houston Chronicle dropped a report that said that Big 12 founding members Texas and Oklahoma had contacted the SEC about potentially joining the conference. These two are probably college football's and college sports' two biggest free agents outside of Notre Dame, USC, or Ohio State. The only reason I say that is because I think Oklahoma might be a better free agent than both of the others. But as a package deal with Texas and Texas's lack of success in football since Big 12 since the Big 12 faltered a decade ago, it seems like things aren't really fitting right now for the Longhorns. So, as we know, what could the SEC look like with Texas and Oklahoma in the league? Of course, there's always the traditional route, and it's honestly the way that I prefer it. It's the way that the conference honestly should look like, with Arkansas, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas and Texas A&M in the West, and in the East, Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt. This would be the best conference in college football, and no less college sports. On most reports and videos that I've watched about this, all they talk about is them joining, and not the chance that Texas and Oklahoma remain with their old counterparts in the Big 12 following the Southwest Conference's breakup in the mid 1990s, when four primary Texas schools from the disbanded conference linked up with the Big 8 member schools to create the Big 12. Of course, since at the beginning of the 2010s, about a decade ago, the first domino fell. When Nebraska wanted more money and were tired of Texas and Oklahoma controlling the Big 12, so they went ahead and joined the Big 10. That move was followed by Colorado going to the Pac-12. Texas A&M and Missouri both followed suit and went into the SEC. Missouri ended a long rivalry with Kansas, and Texas A&M ended an even as long rivalry with the Texas Longhorns. Seemingly, that the Texas and Texas A&M rivalry can be renewed, and I think it would, and it should definitely be. It is the best rivalry that people talk about that is missed. You have Missouri and Kansas, and not really. I'm sorry, I should have phrased it better. Not best, but definitely most missed when it comes to college sports. That's what everyone thinks about. And so what's another way that the league could look like moving forward with Texas and Oklahoma? Well, there's the pod format that many fans and many people in the sports media talk about, and that's 4 groups of 4 in the SEC's sake with 16 teams. Moving west to east, my proposal is this: have all of the old Big 12 schools in one, including Texas, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, and Missouri, with Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and LSU. I think there could be a little confusion, as Arkansas could also be seen as a team that could fit in that pod, but I personally wouldn't mind playing LSU on Black Friday, just like we used to a decade ago. Of course, the SEC has not been very nice to Arkansas in the last decade. The only true presidents that honestly loved Arkansas after they left the Southwest Conference was sort of the first group that came to Arkansas about joining the SEC. Forget the first SEC. Forget the SEC commissioner that invited Arkansas to the SEC that created conference championship games. Conference championship games were the first domino to fall when it comes to modern college football and modern college sports. In my opinion, there would be no conference tournaments I don't think conference tournaments in college basketball would be nearly as successful as they are if the SEC never created the conference championship in football. I know that conference tournaments had been going on forever, in college basketball, but I don't think that they would have gotten the same support if conference championships weren't supported by their football counterparts. So I know we're here to talk about realignment. And the other two SEC pods would sort of be Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt, and the other being Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. I know what you're thinking. Alabama would dominate the sort of the eastern pod or the southern pod. I don't know what you would like to call it, but for basketball's sake, it'd be very similar. Tennessee and Alabama would also dominate it. I think that basketball scheduling is a totally different topic, and since the SEC doesn't necessarily use divisions for basketball, I don't think that they would use pods either. But I'm gonna get to basketball and baseball scheduling later. That's a whole other topic. And for the sort of the eastern northern, I don't know what you would call that. I do think that Georgia and Florida would have a hold on that pod most years in football. When in basketball, Kentucky would dominate it. But again, I don't think that basketball or baseball would use the pod format. Maybe baseball, I think that they would just go with a division look. So, what are the ripples? I will come back to the SEC because they are rumored to be making even more moves, but it makes more sense after we go to other conferences. So let's talk about the Big 12, and I think for the sake of this video, we should call them the Big 8, the 8 remaining teams from the Big 12. Of course, the Big 12 only has 10 teams currently, but of course, seemingly they are down to 8. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and TCU are seemingly the 3 that are sort of right in the middle. They have pretty good football programs, but they aren't going to be but conferences like the Big Ten and the ACC and the Pac-12 won't be the first to go after them. That is for schools like Iowa State and Kansas. The most likely move for the Big Ten, if they can't, I don't think that they will go after Notre Dame. Well, we're going to talk about them in just a second, but I think the best regional move, because I think that the Big Ten, personally for me, of course, USC, UCLA, Colorado, and Oregon have reached out. I don't think that is a very logical move, but we're going to talk about that later too. But I just want to talk about the Big 8 in this scenario. I think that Kansas makes the most sense. Of course, if it's a basketball move, the Big Ten would further cement itself as the best basketball conference in the country. The ACC really has been over the last decade, but the Big Ten has been within the past 3 to 5 seasons. And if we're talking about Iowa State, we're talking about a very good up-and-coming football program, a pretty good basketball program. They haven't been the last 2 seasons, but that's okay. The one thing with the Cyclones is this. They don't necessarily add a market for you that you don't have. The Big Ten already has Iowa and Nebraska. So, My thought is, if you wanted two true basketball powers, go after Kansas, and maybe you add Iowa State for football and baseball or something like that. But my idea is, if the Pac-12 won't add Gonzaga for basketball, why not go after the Zags? I know they may be in Washington, but USC, UCLA, Colorado, and Oregon, they reached out. Why doesn't the Big Ten go after Gonzaga to further their basketball tear? I think that could work if it's just a basketball move. It just has to. It can just be a basketball move, as I don't think Gonzaga really has a fundable football program at the moment, but maybe that can be worked out later. Let's get back to the Big 12. Now, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, and TCU, like I just mentioned, as well as Baylor and Texas Tech, those five are sort of schools that could definitely be picked up by the ACC or the Pac-12. But for the ACC, it feels like a last ditch. If they aren't able to convince Notre Dame to becoming a full member, I think that's what's going to happen. But if the Pac-12, they have to keep the four teams that reached out to the Big Ten, and then you have to add a combination of TCU, Baylor, Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, or Kansas State. I think the 2 or 3 that don't make it are forced to go to the American Athletic Conference. You don't want to be that 65th team that is left out of the sort of the now Power 4, as I think that the Big 12 will get blown up now. And I think that basically each conference at this moment in time will have 16 teams. Now, we're going to get to it, but I think that the SEC can make a move for 20 teams, which would give one conference some more life in choosing new teams, new schools. If we're picking, I think that the Pac-12 would go for TCU. That is a Dallas market that not many conferences have. It is a Dallas Cowboys market, so why not go for it? I would choose Oklahoma State over Kansas State, as they have had the better football program over the last since the last conference expansion happened. However, both have been very, very good programs within the last decade. I would also trust Oklahoma State's basketball program before I would trust Kansas State's. So, let's move forward that way. 2 more picks. So either you go with Baylor or Texas Tech to sort of be TCU's new rival. And I would go Baylor. Baylor just won a men's basketball national championship. And then for Oklahoma State, of course, you can go Texas Tech, or you can go Kansas State. And honestly, I would probably choose Kansas State, but I think that the the Pac-12 would go. Let me think about this. It would depend on what the conference wanted, of course, and they already have LA and Seattle and Portland markets. And they have the Phoenix market as well. So you could really pick either. But so we're just not going to assume, because they already, at that point, they would already have Dallas. Which one is closer to Houston? That would be my pick. I don't know which one, so we'll just let them sort of choose. So, of course, the Pac-12 for basketball, you can always go after Gonzaga as a basketball only member. They have not done that yet. One other thing that the Big 12 can do is offer Wichita State a basketball only membership as well. They moved up from the Missouri Valley to the American Athletic Conference as a basketball only members, similar to what Gonzaga could be in the Big Ten or the Pac-12. And but then there is another scenario where the American could be very offensive, and so in that scenario, I don't know. I don't know how that would necessarily work out. I think you would probably go with Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, and Baylor, just like the Pac-12 would, and just keep Houston, Cincinnati, Memphis, UCF, South Florida, and Navy, and everyone else in that conference. I'm just not going to name everyone. This video is already almost 22 minutes long. But let's come back I need to go to the ACC. So let's talk about Notre Dame real quick. They are under contract with the ACC. So legally, contractually, they have to go with the ACC. If Notre Dame wants to fully join a football conference, fully join a sports conference and athletic conference, they have to go with the ACC. Similar to what Texas and Oklahoma are going to have to do if they want to make it to the SEC early. They have to buy out of their contract with the ACC. If the Big Ten comes to Notre Dame, if they come to Notre Dame officials and say, hey, we want to add one of, if not the greatest college football program ever, and say, look, you have no business playing UNC and Florida State and Clemson every year out on the Atlantic coast. You need to come back and join your Midwest brethren. And so I think in that situation, Notre Dame would definitely take that offer. The Big Ten makes a lot more money than the ACC, makes a lot more revenue. So I think that could be a possibility. I haven't necessarily mapped that out in my brain. And in a future video, I'm going to be breaking down sort of what all three of the other leagues outside of the ACC, or excuse me, outside of the SEC, what their future leagues could look like. I'm gonna break that down in a video, but I'm just gonna be breaking down what the SEC could look like in this video. Excuse me. And one more team from the Big 12 that we have not talked about is West Virginia, or the Big 8. And that's because they are going to go by themselves. They will either likely go to the American, to the Big Ten, or to the ACC. I think every West Virginia fan wants to go to the ACC. It would mean a rekindling of the backyard brawl, your Thanksgiving rivalry, their Thanksgiving rivalry with Pittsburgh. It'd be a huge win for West Virginia. when it comes to playing regional rivals, like old rivals like Boston College and Syracuse, and again Pittsburgh and Virginia and Virginia Tech and Miami. And not that Miami is that regional, but they've played in the past in the Big East. So the ACC would look fairly simple. I'll break it down in a video later I bet next week. So this is perfect. So last 5 minutes or so of this video, I'm gonna be talking about what the SEC could look like moving forward. What Arkansas' stance in the SEC is looking like, because honestly, I'm obsessed with this stuff. Conference realignment is my favorite thing in college sports to read about, look at. I dream about this stuff in my head. So let's first talk about what I was talking about earlier with what Texas and Oklahoma would have to do to get out of the Big 12 early. They have a TV contract, pretty much a contract with the Big 12 that means that they can't leave the Big 12 until the 2024-2025 school year ends. June 30th, 2025 is their last day, the last 24 hours that they would have to be in the Big 12 if they don't pay that contract out. If both OU and Texas don't pay out of their $76 million contract to the Big 12, then they can't join. They physically can't join the SEC until 2025-2026. I've looked at multiple reports. Some have said that they aren't thinking about it, and that it's just going to be a very awkward 2 to 4 seasons. Maybe they think about it, and next season they do it, and I think that's probably the most likely thing. But I'm going to get to it in about 2 seconds. The SEC, now that their deal with CBS is coming up, they have their new deal with CBS, ABC, and ESPN, with Disney, ABC, and ESPN coming up. That is going to start in 2024, and that means that the SEC is going to be able to pay Texas and Oklahoma so much money. So the SEC, so Texas and Oklahoma don't necessarily have to worry about it. They can pay the Big 12 honestly whatever they need, and not be worried because of the contract that the SEC will have with Disney and what that could bring in for every one of the 16 members of the SEC. Of course, I didn't really get down to the bare tax at the beginning of the video. At least 4 institutions from the SEC would have to say no for UT and OU not to go, not to get that official invitation into the league that they would definitely accept, because they were the ones that were interested first. So again, we don't know who made the first phone call, but the report was that both were interested, and that the SEC wasn't calling them. So again, the CBS contract, the best SEC game every week, will not be played on CBS at the end of the 2023-2024 year. 2023-2024 academic year. It will be played at 3:30 on ABC. And there will be many more games there will be more SEC games than there are now on ESPN networks. On ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News. There are a lot now. There's the SEC ESPN network that plays games. I should have said that just a second ago. That will bring in buttloads of money for Texas and Oklahoma and the rest of the SEC. Yet last night, we of course heard the report that Clemson, Florida State, Ohio State, and Michigan said, "F it, we are very interested in the SEC as well." They reached out to the SEC. I don't know necessarily how official it was, but they are definitely interested. 4 of the best college football programs over the past 20 years, for Clemson's sake, for Michigan State, Ohio State, and Florida State over the last century. 3 of the best football programs, and if they were able to add those 4, definitely be a pod thing for football. Likely retain the first 3 pods that I said, and put Ohio State, Kentucky, Clemson, and Michigan in a pod, and move South Carolina, Florida State, Georgia, and Florida in a pod. It would make more sense to put South Carolina with Georgia and not Clemson with Georgia in the rest of that pod, because there's more history in between Georgia and Florida with them than Clemson has with Georgia and Florida. But of course, we're gonna have to see. Now for the final part of the video, I really hope I didn't forget anything in these 32 and a half minutes that I've been filming. And that is, what could college basketball and college baseball scheduling look like? And I only really know about college baseball scheduling because I've been interested in it this season, because Arkansas was so good, and I would probably be interested even if Arkansas wasn't very good. Arkansas has always had a great college baseball program, and there's a big shout out to Dave Van Horn for that. But first, I want to start with college basketball scheduling. So currently, the SEC, of course, has 14 teams, and they play an 18-game conference schedule, and there's a likelihood that it could move up to 20 before Texas and Oklahoma enter the league. That's what the Big Ten has done. I think that's what the ACC has done. So the SEC will hopefully follow suit as the 3rd best conference in college basketball in my personal eyes over the last 5 seasons. Now, adding 2 new teams would likely mean a 22-game schedule or thereabouts, because again, 14 teams means an 18-game. 16 plus 4 is 20. Or did I say 20 or 22? I think it could be anywhere from 22 to 22. If they're able to add that 4 more, Clemson, Florida State, Michigan, and Ohio State, I could see up to a 30-game conference schedule. I just think it would be played all season. but I think anywhere from that 24 number to that 30 number makes honestly the most sense when it comes to a college basketball schedule. The only time that they wouldn't play conference likely would be during Feast Week, which is ESPN's basically it's Thanksgiving week for invitationals and any non-conference rivalries. So that's the only time I could really see them not playing. And then for college baseball, the SEC, of course, with 14 current members, sometimes in less popular sports, many SEC teams they drop those programs. So scheduling has to be different. Sometimes they are down to eight teams in the SEC that are only participating in, let's say, badminton or something. So anyway, in baseball, assuming all 20 teams would compete, and there are 10 conference series played with the 14 member schools right now, you would have a 16 series. So you would likely start your conference play the 2 weeks into the season, 2 weeks after the season has started, so 2 weeks after Valentine's weekend, and it would just work out the same. If you only had if you only had the 16 number, if you only have the 16 number, then it's just 12, and I would start it a week or so into March or 2 weeks into March. Sorry this video has gone so long, y'all, but I enjoy talking about this so much. Excuse me. Anyway, now this is part of the part that I want y'all all to watch. It sucks that it's at the end of this video, but what is the SEC going to do with Arkansas, or are they going to do anything with them now that Oklahoma and Texas are going to enter the league? That's more thing I was also going to say. The Sooners and the Longhorns are going to be in the SEC by next season. They don't care that it's $76 million each. The SEC will pay them. The SEC will give them their revenue. So, of course, I've seen multiple different things about this. When will they join? My most confident report that I've read, and my most confident answer is they will be in the SEC next season. Likely it will be in a West-East divisional format, because that's the way that the league is functioning now. And I just don't think that Greg Sankey wants to really change it that much. Alabama and Auburn will be in the SEC East. Missouri, Texas, and Oklahoma will be in the SEC West. How will the SEC deal with Arkansas? Trust me, they aren't going to get rid of one of the best baseball programs in the country, the best track and cross-country program in the country, a program that won 21 SEC titles over this last academic year, 2020-2021, and I think definitely an up-and-coming football program with Sam Pittman as one of the most successful assistant coaches of the last 5 to 10 years. I just can't see them moving on. Will they put them in a bad situation? Likely. They will probably put them in the pod with Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. My proposal, of course, was putting them with LSU, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. That's what makes most sense to me, because those four have all been in the SEC longer than Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. I think that makes the most sense. All the old Big 12 teams in the same pod, and but I think that it's going to be divisions, at least until 2 or 4 new teams or schools join. Of course, all Arkansas fans can say that we had a game stripped from us on October 10th of 2020. Bo Nix literally fumbled the football. Again, that's okay. As we're used to that as Arkansas fans. But thank y'all for watching all 40 minutes of this. If you watch it up until this point, I will be making more videos. I think I don't know about what these conferences could be looking like as we get more updates and if there's something new that came out. I've been filming this video around 7 p.m. on Saturday. So thank y'all for watching. It's been Carter from CBH, and I'm signing out. Peace.